The Key of Adelbert, Rift Between the Realms by Isaac S. Roussel. Dedication. This humble work is dedicated first and foremost to my players, Abby, Trevor, Ashton, Jacob, Samuel, and Hannah. It is also dedicated to all my gaming friends over the past 5 decades with whom I have been enjoying the wonderful world of Dungeons and Dragons, in particular Harry and Martha Frank. We've had a lot of laughs over the years, and especially to my beloved brother Brad of blessed memory, who was cut off from this world too soon. Diocletes and Clofton sure had some fun times together, didn't they, old boy? I miss you dearly. Preface. I've always been a big fan of science fiction. As a kid, I gobbled up authors like Isaac Asimov, Andre Norton, Fred Saberhagen, Anne McCaffrey, and Robert Heinlein. When I was 13, my cousin gave me Conan the Warrior by Robert E. Howard. I had never read fantasy literature before, and it blew my mind. I was immediately hooked. I soon discovered Tolkien, who became my favorite. In high school, I read The Lord of the Rings every single year. In 1977, my friend Tony called me over to his house to play a new game that he had received for his birthday. It was called Dungeons and Dragons. He ran a game for me that day. I was the only player. It was fabulously fun and set me on a lifetime of role game playing. I've tried many different systems over the years, but have always come back to D&D as my favorite. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the game, it is played with pencil, paper, dice, and miniatures. The Dungeon Master, abbreviated DM, runs the game as the story's narrator for the players. He or she designs the encounters, decides on the general flow of the story, allowing room for players' decisions, and role plays all the characters in the game except for the players' characters. The grouchy innkeeper, the eager merchant on the street with a bit of juicy information about treasure, and the sultry courtesan are all played by the DM. The players each roll up a character that is comprised of statistics that govern gameplay, but more importantly, they decide on the character's race, gender, personality, and backstory. They may play a bawdy bard, a taciturn priest, or a jovial druid. I played D&D throughout high school and college, but took a hiatus when my kids were little. When Samuel, my son, was about 8 years old, my brother and I decided to run a game with our kids. This rekindled my love of the game. The look on Samuel's face when he began to visualize the rogue crawling up in the ceiling grating was priceless, a memory that I will always have. D&D is not a war game. In my opinion, it's not even so much about the role playing, it's about the laughs and good times with friends. We will never forget Bjarki, my berserker, saving the party by killing an ogre using a dead hobbit's body as a club. This created the trope, how much damage does a hobbit do? With the answer being, it depends on how hard you swing him. This gets mentioned often in games, and we are all have a good laugh. It never gets old. Or the time that Clofton, my brother's fighter, decided to take a tavern wench upstairs only to discover that she was a succubus. That cost him dearly, and we never ceased teasing him about it. Our characters even formed friendships and sometimes rivalries. Bjarki, filthy and uncouth, always enjoyed annoying Harry's effete elven characters. I really enjoy stories that mix genres. I have in recent years become a great fan of urban fantasy where monsters and magic exist in the real world. Who can resist a wizard who is also an angst driven gumshoe in Chicago, or a mechanic who could shapeshift into a coyote? Ever since the beginning of the TV show The Walking Dead, I have wanted to run a zombie apocalypse game set in a D&D fantasy world. A couple of Samuel's friends had been asking for years to try D&D, so in the summer of 2016, we finally organized it and ran a short campaign that lasted about 10 sessions over the course of 3 months. I did something different this time, though. Because it was a zombie milieu, I wanted to be able to kill characters. This is something that players don't really like. they get very attached to them. So I rolled up all the characters for them and then handed them out. I defined everything, including their personalities, backstories, goals, idiosyncrasies, etc. The players were more like actors who had to take up the role and play it out. To my delight, they all took to this readily. Unfortunately, they also ended up becoming very attached to their characters, so when they died, as some did, they were sad. I actually didn't end up killing as many as I'd planned to. I didn't want to fall into the death of the weak mode. I wanted this to be a low magic world where all the characters were human, at least initially. So I came up with the idea that the worlds were split apart. This also solved a problem that I had introducing new characters for the players to play when theirs died, because if I gave them a local character, they would know too much information. I also wanted to make them scrounge for food and supplies like people do in zombie films and games. This didn't work out so well, and I quickly gave up on it. It slowed things down too much. I also didn't want them armored so much that the zombies couldn't hit them, so they had no armor as it was too noisy and would bring them under their attack. We played this campaign using D&D 5th edition rules with some homebrew rules thrown in. I like to focus on story and role play rather than all the technical details, and many times just make a ruling on the fly rather than spending a lot of time poring through rule books. We had so much fun that I decided to write up their experiences as a short novel, and this is the result. I had to improvise here and there and fill in the details as I could not remember everything, but this story gives the general flow of events and definitely captures their significant successes and failures. It is not great literature and probably has problems with formatting, grammar, and such. I am not a professional author and don't know a lot of the rules for such things. At the end of each chapter, I have included some DM notes in italics that talk about the gameplay. I hope that you all enjoy reading this as much as I enjoyed running the game and writing it up. My thanks to Alexis Nowicki, who reviewed the rough draft and gave lots of useful editorial comments, and thanks to my son Samuel Roussel, who did the cover art for the book. The cast of characters are Alicia Blempt, a female human rogue, played initially by Ashton and then by Trevor. Arksad Brannock, a male human fighter, played by Samuel. Axton Smate, a male human fighter, played by Hannah. Damar Zinn, a male human cleric, played by Abby. Machlon, a male human fighter, played by Ashton. Matia Drak, a female human monk, played by Jacob. Mother Pickett was a female gnome wizard, played by Ashton. Zan Modric was a male human fighter, played by Trevor. And then Master Wax was a male human scholar that was played by me as the dungeon master. So Master Wax was an NPC, but a major NPC. That is the end of this. We will then move on to chapter 1.